All right, let's talk about why content marketing does not work. I know you might be, or you might not if you know me. You might be surprised to hear me talking about this because I am the content marketing person, right? I am the one who is all, yes, you need to be investing in content marketing. I understand business is hard. How do we get more leads? And I have seen this work. I swear, I have seen the leads come out of nowhere. It's an amazing feeling when someone you've never met, never heard of, calls you out of the blue and says, "Hey, I found you online. I want to talk about my content marketing needs." It feels so good. You know what else feels really awesome when you're on a sales call and someone upsells themselves because of something they read on your blog. Contrast this with people who don't blog. And what happens is they get a lot of those leads that find them online or someone referred them, but they're convinced, you know what, my uncle so and so told me this is how it works, or I read on Facebook somewhere that this is what I really need to be doing. And they really have no idea what they're talking about. You eliminate that when you have really strong content on your website that actually educates people as to how it actually works and why they need to be doing certain things. And it makes that sales process so much easier. So at the same time, we do hear a lot of people saying blogging is dead, content marketing doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. And it's all, I mean, it's not wrong, but there are certain things I see people doing and not doing that set them up for failure when it comes to their content marketing. So let's talk about what those things are. I have 8 things. There's probably more, but these are the biggest ones I see a lot. Number one is not understanding SEO, search engine optimization, which I used to refer to as making Google your friend, which is still the case. The vast majority of searches are still taking place on Google, but that is less and less so. So now we have to incorporate, I don't want to say AI because that's too broad. I also don't want to say ChatGPT because that's too narrow. So I'll say LLMs, which, if you're unfamiliar, stands for, I think it's large language model. ChatGPT is an LLM. The chatbots is another way to put it, right? The people, the tools that people go to chat with the robot and say, "Hey, what do I need to know about such and such? How does this work? Help me find this XYZ," whatever it might be. So that is still the minority of searches. I don't want to start saying Google is dead yet, but it is. We can't ignore the fact that that kind of thing is growing. So that's still really content based, right? People, when they think about SEO, I hear people saying they're investing in SEO, but not content marketing. And I'm like, how does that work? Because SEO is content based. When people search online for whatever it is they need, they are looking for content that answers the questions they are asking. So if you don't have the content that answers their questions, you're not going to get found. You can do all the technical stuff. You can have it set up on the back end to make Google happy and make it so that all the robots, Google and all the other robots, can read your content, figure out what it's all about, and rank it in certain searches. But if you're not answering the questions that people are asking, if you're not investing in creating that content, you're not going to get found. So there's a real disconnect between SEO and content, and that they think they're two different things. They're not. I mean, yes, there's a technical aspect to SEO, there's a content side to SEO. You need both. You cannot have just one and think that it'll work, because it's not. Technical side without the content, not going to work. Content without the technical side, not going to work. So make sure either you're working with an agency that has 2 people, at least 2 people, who really understand the content and the technical side, or you work with someone like me who has, again, I'm mostly content, but I also partner with people who do focus on the content side, and that is their sweet spot, because I know I need to bring them in on projects where there isn't someone doing the technical side. So that's number one. Number two, too much promotional content. They think, oh, I need to be talking about my products. I need to be talking about my services. Let's write a blog post about it. I'm not saying never do that. I'm saying that should be the minority of your blog posts. Absolutely have your sales pages and the occasional promotional email, social media posts, even blog posts, that is all, hey, here's my services, let's talk, right? But that needs to be the minority of your marketing content. The majority of it needs to be educational. Here's what I do. Here's how this works. Here's this update that just happened. Here's what you need to know. And most importantly, here's why you should care. That is another big one that people miss, especially when they're doing their own content. Why should I? That is the answer, the question that everyone is asking anytime we look for anything, right? Why do I care? And so many people, when they're creating content, miss it because it's obvious to us, right? I myself tend to go blank when people ask me, why should I be blogging? Because my brain is full of so many reasons that it's like they all try to run out the door at the same time and they get stuck in the doorway and I can't focus on just one. There are so many reasons. It's obvious to me. It's not obvious to someone who's not in my industry and hasn't been reading all of my blogs and watching all of my videos and goes, "Oh, that's why it's important," right? It's obvious when you know when you immerse yourself in this day in and day out. But keep in mind, whatever service you're providing, the people who are looking for you are not immersed in that day in and day out. They don't understand why it's so important. So be sure to do that, to focus on that. Here's what you need to know, and then actually let them know. Don't just be like, don't be that teaser who goes, oh, here's what you need to know, but you have to pay me to find out, right? No one likes that. Actually tell them what they need to know and why they need to know. I do recommend starting with the why they need to know. You'll notice at the beginning of this video, I talked about the awesome success and awesome things that I've seen happen because of content marketing, because I want to let you know right off the bat, yes, content marketing works, but also here's why you should care, because everyone wants those sales that just come to you, that just show up, and they're super easy, right? So yes, you can have the occasional blog post if you just launched a new product or service, or you're rebranding. There are absolutely reasons to have a blog post to announce that kind of thing, but that needs to be the minority of your blog posts and social media and email posts, right? The majority of them needs to be educational, provide value, all on their own. Not giving it enough time. So one time I was babysitting this girl. This was ages ago, and I still remember this. This girl was probably 4 or 5, and I was, babysitting her, and mom wasn't supposed to be back until after bedtime, so I was responsible for bathing her and getting her ready for bed. And I can't remember how or why, but toddlers being toddlers, she starts drinking the soapy, disgusting bath water. And I tell her not to because she's going to get sick. And her response was to immediately drink more of it and then go, see, I'm not sick. Because she's 4 or 5. She doesn't understand how long it takes for the things we ingest to work their way through our digestive system and have their effects on us, right? Same with content marketing. A lot of people either they don't understand how long it takes or they just get frustrated, bored, distracted. They give up way too soon. And even in general, most marketers will tell you give something 3 to 6 months before you give up on it. I'm going to say, especially with blogging, give it more like 6 months to a year, just because in that 3 to 6 month mark is when the rubber starts to hit the road. That's when you really start to see traction from that effort you've been putting in for those few months. So I'm going to say go a full year before you give up on anything, just because if you quit at month 3 or 4, you might be quitting right when you're starting to see results, or right before you start to see results, right? That's the proverbial, closing down the mine when you're like 3 feet from gold, right? We all know that story. So give it at least a year. If you've measured your results after a year and you're still not seeing results, either reassess and do something different, or just shut it down and start investing that time and energy or dollars into doing something else. Not having a clear brand voice. So something I come back to again and again. So my favorite TV show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I still remember I was watching the commentary on an episode, and one of the writers talked about how they wrote a scene and they had this one line initially assigned to character A, and then they rewrote it and that didn't work anymore, but they wanted to keep the line, so they assigned it to character B. They turned in the script, and the person they turned it into immediately said, that is not a line for that character. That is a line for character A. They knew it without asking, without having to check, because the dialogue, if you've ever watched the show, the dialogue is one of the strongest suits of that show. It is the thing that Joss Whedon is best at is really good dialogue and having distinct dialogue for each character. So your brand needs to be the same way. your brand voice needs to be so clear that people can see a social media post or even just a snippet, just a line, and know this belongs even without your logo, even without your company name attached to it. They will know that it belongs to your company, assuming they're familiar with your company, right? But it needs to be so consistent that every time they see content from your brand, whether it's social media, your email, your blog, your videos, whatever it might be, it all sounds the same. And this might sound obvious, but when you get into that stage of growth where you need someone to do social media and someone to do your emails and someone to do your blogs, if you're hiring three different people to do three different things and you don't establish, here's our brand voice guidelines, here's how you need to, here's the kind of content you need to create for us and the voice you need to use when you create every piece of content for us. If you don't do that, that's when your brand starts to sound like three or four different people. And that's when you run into trouble, because if people follow you online, let's say social media, and they love what they see on social media, and they find their way to your blog or anywhere on your website, and it sounds completely different, they're going to click away because they're going to go, wait a minute, I thought I was getting one thing, and now here I am getting something completely different. Where did this come from? So don't do that. Have a really clear brand voice. And if you need help coming up with brand voice guidelines, reach out, because that is something I help my clients with. Not promoting your content. So I told a client once that I don't do social media, and his follow-up question was something like, why don't you like social media? Or why don't you think social media is a good idea? Or why don't you see value in it? And I was like, wait, what? I never said that. Social media can be really powerful, again, if used correctly, like any other aspect of content marketing. And yes, social media is technically part of content marketing. It's just not the part that I specialize in, because it's a whole other ballgame. You're dealing with a whole different set of algorithms and a different set of rules, which are changing probably even more frequently than Google's rules are changing, right? So it's great. Yes, you need to be investing in content marketing. Yes, you need to promote your content. I'm just not going to be the person to do that for you. But I know a bunch of people who do that. So if you need some recommendations, let me know. I can hook you up. But I'm not going to try and be a Jane of all trades. So all this is to say, yes, you need to be promoting your content. A lot of people make the mistake of publishing content and saying, ta-da, I published it, I built it, now they will come, right? No, actually. Even if you have all your SEO ducks in a row so that eventually Google finds its way to your content and then starts directing people to your content, that takes at least 2 to 3 months. That can take a while. So don't rely on that to get immediately results, especially if you're creating content around topics that are really timely and might be obsolete in a few months. So absolutely make sure that you are promoting it. It gets you in front of a wider audience. Share it on social media, put it in your newsletter, share it on social media, have a companion blog or video to go with it, and then share it on social media some more. Yes, I know I said share it on social media 3 different times. That's because social media content has a very short shelf life. So you want to make sure that you do that again and again and again. No, you're not boring. If you publish it at 8 a.m. and then again at noon and then again at 4 p.m., you're going to get in front of the people who are online at 8 a.m. and at noon and at 4 p.m. because those tend to be 3 different groups of people, right? It's rare that you have someone who's just on, actually, it's not that rare on social media who's on all the time. But if they're on at one time and they see your post and then it disappears and then they see other stuff, right? So make sure you're posting again and again and again on social media. I know I'm not a social media strategist, but I know just enough to be dangerous. So that is the kind of thing that I do know about. So yes, put it on social media. Yes, share it in your newsletter. Again, not only does this get you in front of a whole bunch of people, but it also is a great way to create tons of content without reinventing the wheel, right? You spent all this time and energy writing a blog post. Now I have to do a newsletter. Now I have to do all these social media posts, right? It doesn't have to be 3 different types of content. It can all be the same thing. If you've ever been to my blog, you'll see that my blog posts are all the same topics that these videos are on, right? Because some people want the video and some people want the blog posts. That's fine. This is a great way for me to diversify and get the same educational content in front of as many different people as possible without reinventing the wheel. I'm not going to come up with a whole different topic for a video when I already have a great topic sitting on my blog. So that's that. Promote your content. Also, that tells Google if you're promoting it and driving organic traffic to your content, that makes the algorithm sit up and pay attention and go, oh, there's already traffic coming to this piece of content. There must be value here. We should probably start directing more traffic there because clearly people are expressing an interest in it. Now writing for the ideal audience, I read a lot of great blog posts. I read a lot of bad blog posts. I read a lot of blog posts that are meh, they're okay. They have good intentions, but they miss one key ingredient, which is writing with their ideal audience in mind. It's amazing how quickly that goes out the window. And I get it. I get that it's easy when you're in your industry and you go, oh, this is really important. I should write about it. And you forget that people don't care. Your ideal audience does not care because you're in it. You're doing this all day, right? I'm blogging. Why don't people care? They do not care about the topics you are covering. So make sure that you are always keeping in mind what are the questions people are asking, what is it they need to know, and then make it clear in your content. Here's why you should care. Here's why this matters. The other thing I see a lot, using industry jargon that your ideal audience does not understand and is not going to take the time to look up. If you do use jargon like SEO, like CTA, right, make sure that you include a definition right next to that little acronym there so that people understand what the heck you're talking about. And again, I know this is hard because we deal with this jargon all day, every day. So we're used to it. Your audience is not. Make sure that you are using language that they understand and that resonates with them. If you can use the language that they use, even better, because again, it's going to be really easy for them to understand. But that's also a key, a note, a little hint to them that you are part of their tribe. You belong together. That is going to go so much further to building trust with them than anything else you could do in your content marketing. So the language you use, super important. Using the wrong call to action. I also see this a lot, especially because I work with professional service providers, right? It takes a while to earn trust when you're in the professional service industry, right? People, it's one of those industries that's technically B2C. Again, I work with lawyers, I work with financial planners. There's a lot of B2C, but it really operates in practice a lot more like a B2B, just because it takes longer to earn that trust. There's usually more than one person involved in the buying decision. They're going to read a ton of content before they even reach out to ask whether or not it makes sense for them to work with you. So do not end your blog posts with, hey, reach out for a free consultation, because we all know that's code for sales call, right? That, I always say, that is like proposing on the first date. That is going way too far, way too fast. Slow down. Ask them out on another date. Let them know that they can sign up for your webinar or download your ebook or sign up for your newsletter or follow you on social media. If they're already interested in the content you're providing, they'll be interested in more content. And that's a great way for you to do that, by getting them on your email list, on your social media follows, so that you can continue to put great content in front of them. So do not miss that opportunity. If you are in e-commerce, by all means, have a blog post that goes, hey, buy this at the end of it. That's a perfect call to action for that. That makes sense. But if you're in a professional service industry or B2B, don't do that. That is, like I said, it's like proposing on the first date. Last but certainly not least, not having a strategy. I need to create content. I created content. Why is content not working? And again, I know this is really hard when you're in it all day, every day. This is what's really exciting. This is what's really interesting. This is the language I use. It's really hard to kind of pull back and go, okay, here's my ideal audience. Here's where they're hanging out. Here's the types of content they tend to consume. Here are the topics they're interested in. That's where someone like me comes in. That's where you need a content marketing strategist to come in and say, and kind of pull back and look at that big picture and look at all the puzzle pieces and fill in those gaps. So if you need help with any of that, if you're interested in putting together that strategy, please reach out. Or if you're interested in having someone create the content for you, also, please reach out. You can reach me. You can head over to my website, AV, as in my initials, Allison Verhalen. I'm over at avwritingservices.com. You can also email me directly at info@avwritingservices.com, or just, leave a comment, a message here on YouTube. Have a great week and happy blogging, everyone.